When it comes to relationships, it's important to understand that not every connection we form is meant to last. And sometimes, when things don't work out the way we hoped, it's actually a form of divine protection. God, in His infinite wisdom, often shields us from situations, people, and relationships that are not in our best interest, even when we might not see it at the time. Here are 4 detailed signs that God is protecting you from a bad relationship, offering a much deeper insight into how He works in our lives to save us from future heartache. 1. If this person reveals their ugly character. Early in the relationship and leaves you, this is a clear sign of God's protection. It's always difficult when someone we like suddenly reveals a side of themselves that we hadn't seen before, especially if that side is not appealing or godly. Perhaps this person, whom you were just starting to build a connection with, suddenly becomes angry, distant, or outright leaves you, seemingly out of nowhere. While the emotional pain and confusion can be overwhelming at first, in many cases, this is a clear sign that God is protecting you from an even deeper heartache. Think about it. Maybe you envisioned this relationship blossoming into something long-term, perhaps even leading to marriage. Maybe you thought this person was the one God had sent into your life, but then, suddenly, they did something that took you by surprise. They showed you a different side to their character, perhaps one that was rooted in anger, selfishness, or dishonesty. This could have been the first time they lashed out in anger or completely cut off communication without any explanation. In the moment, it's tempting to feel devastated or confused. You may ask yourself, what did I do wrong? But instead of seeing this as a personal failure, consider that this might be God's way of revealing the truth to you early in the relationship. This person likely didn't suddenly change. Their character was always this way. They were always capable of this kind of behavior, but it just hadn't surfaced until now. God, in His mercy, often allows us to see the true nature of someone early on, so that we can protect our hearts from forming a deeper attachment. The sudden shift in their behavior isn't a sign that you missed out on something good. It's God's way of making sure you don't waste any more time on someone who isn't equipped to build a godly relationship with you. Instead of pursuing a relationship with someone who isn't willing to honor you, God steps in and removes them from your life. He wants to spare you the future pain of continuing to invest in someone who is not aligned with His will for you. Although it hurts now, this is His divine way of shielding your heart from further damage. 2. When your friends and family's concerns about this person are proven right. Another significant way that God might protect you from a bad relationship is by using the people in your life who care about you the most, your friends and family. These individuals know you well. They've seen your strengths and weaknesses, and they often have a keen sense of who might be good or bad for you. So, when multiple people in your inner circle voice concerns or warnings about someone you're dating, it's worth paying attention. At first, it's natural to feel defensive when others express doubts about your new relationship. You might think they don't know him, her like I do, or they're just being overprotective. But time often reveals the truth. If your loved ones repeatedly raise concerns, and those concerns are later confirmed by this person's actions, it's a strong indication that God was working through them to protect you from a bad situation. Perhaps your family or close friends warned you that the person seemed controlling, unreliable, or dishonest. You may have brushed these warnings aside, only to later experience firsthand the very behaviors they cautioned you about. Rather than feeling ashamed for not seeing it sooner, consider that this was God's way of confirming that the relationship was not right for you. He used the wisdom and insight of those who love you to help guide you away from a harmful path. This is not something to feel humiliated about. It's actually a blessing. It's far better to have people in your life who care enough to speak up and guide you away from trouble than to go through it all alone and confused. If the concerns raised by others end up being accurate, take it as a sign that God is actively involved in protecting your emotional and spiritual well-being. He often uses our relationships with family and friends to offer us clarity when we're too caught up in the emotions of a new relationship to see things clearly ourselves. 3. If someone was leading you on but then started dating someone else, it's a sign God is protecting you. Few things sting as much as being led on by someone you were developing feelings for, only for them to suddenly start dating someone else. Perhaps you were in the early stages of getting to know someone and they seemed genuinely interested in you. Maybe they were saying all the right things, making promises, or hinting at wanting something more serious with you. You may have even felt that things were progressing toward an official relationship. But then, out of nowhere, this person disappears or shifts their attention to someone else, leaving you feeling hurt and confused. As painful as it is, this can actually be one of the clearest signs that God is protecting you from a relationship that could have caused even more heartache down the road. Imagine if you had started dating this person, only to discover that they were talking to multiple other people behind your back. The hurt from that kind of betrayal would be far worse than the pain of them simply moving on to someone else. God, in His wisdom, may have allowed this person to show their true character before you became too emotionally invested. He is sparing you the agony of being in a relationship where trust and faithfulness are lacking. As hard as it is to accept, someone leaving your life can be one of the greatest forms of divine protection. You might feel rejected, but in reality, God is closing the door on a relationship that would have brought you more harm than good. He sees what you cannot see, and He knows what's happening behind the scenes in ways that you don't. Trust that this person's exit from your life is God's way of steering you towards something better, someone who will treat you with the respect and love you deserve. 4. When you pray for a relationship but it doesn't happen, God is protecting you from what isn't His best. Many times, we earnestly pray for God to bring us a specific relationship. Perhaps you've met someone who seems perfect, and you've prayed for God to bring you two closer together. But despite your prayers and hopes, the relationship doesn't come to fruition. It's easy to feel like God is ignoring your desires or that you've done something wrong. However, this too can be a form of divine protection. Just because a relationship doesn't happen doesn't mean the person is bad or that they won't make a good spouse someday. It simply means that they aren't God's best for you. God's plans for our lives are always rooted in what's best for us. And while we might not understand His no in the moment, it's always done out of love. God may have other plans for you that don't involve this specific person. He might be preparing you for someone who is a better fit for you spiritually, emotionally, and practically. Or perhaps this person, while not necessarily bad, simply isn't the right one for your journey. Trust that God's timing and choices are perfect, even when they don't align with our desires. God is more concerned with developing your relationship with Him than He is with answering every romantic prayer exactly as you wish. His no is often a redirection to something far greater than you could have imagined. When we trust in God's wisdom and believe that He has our best interest at heart, we can rest assured that unanswered prayers are often His way of protecting us from a relationship that wasn't meant to be. Final thoughts: trusting God's plan in relationships. God's protection may not always come in ways that are easy to understand, but it's always present. Whether it's through revealing someone's true character, confirming the concerns of loved ones, or redirecting us away from relationships that weren't meant for us. He is constantly working to keep us safe from emotional and spiritual harm. Trust in his wisdom, even when the path is painful, and know that he is leading you towards something better.